Yeah, he's not a kid, Bora. He's a senior player in that setup. So
All the vibes were that 92 World Cup vibes
yeah.
and whatnot.
Welcome back to Sri Lankan Cricket Podcast with Vida and Bora. We are recording this after England's World Cup win, and we'll talk about Sri Lanka's journey in the World Cup, what we are going to do, what we should be doing going into the next World Cup. And we'll obviously have to talk about the elephant in the room, Bora Danushka Gunatilaka. How have you been? You started playing club cricket. Are you guys winning games?
We're off to a bit of a slow start. Didn't get the wins. Weather hasn't been good, so hopefully we can string a few wins over the next few weeks of cricket. But you're right, getting into the main event of the T20 World Cup. Sri Lanka don't have a lot to talk about on their flight on the way back home. So we'll probably just wanna touch base on a few things that we've noticed over the course of this series. And yeah, some interesting topics, like you say, the elephant in the room, to cover that and see where it leads from there.
Yeah, well, everyone knows England won the World Cup for the second time. Now they are the kings of white ball cricket, Bora. They're holding the 50-over World Cup and the T20 World Cup.
Yeah, kings of cricket, and you're right. If you look back on it, they've set the benchmark now on teams to achieve. Like, they've changed cricket. I mean, everyone knows since that 2015 World Cup where they were, kicked out of it, and how they went back. Correct. And I was hoping to, touch base a little bit about how England's, open to changes and not afraid to go about it. And at the top, there was the transition between Morgan to Butler, then the transition of the coaching setup and how it settled into that group. Because yes, you got to play a certain way to get to the top, and then to stay at the top, you also need a bit of a change so that it gets that whole group motivated to keep pushing for something extra. So that's where I think England's changed it really well. Got to understand some of the changes that England brought about over the last year was to do with red ball cricket, where Rob Key was appointed into that leadership role because England's red ball team wasn't doing well. But they also transitioned certain changes into the white ball team, which has helped them be where they're at. They hold both the white ball trophies in world cricket at the moment.
Yeah. We talk about Sri Lanka playing their own brand of cricket, Bora. I think England are playing, especially white ball cricket. They are playing their brand of cricket now. I mean, they're very precise with their plans and how they execute them in the field. Like, I had a chat with one of the ex Sri Lankan batting greats in the last week, and he mentioned this as well. Like they have so many options when it comes to batting and bowling. You mentioned they almost got 11 batsmen playing in that team, and the depth in the dugout, Bora. Like, Team Sri Lanka, we came into the World Cup. We had a good team, but one injury to Dushman Chamir and our team's balance has gone out of the window just after one injury. But if you look at England, Johnny Bairstow injured himself, and in comes Alex Hales, then Mark Wood, who was rockets in the tournament, and he's missing out the final, but in comes Jordan. So and they're not even using Moeen Ali's 4 overs, even when he has bowled 2 overs per less than 10 runs. Like, they have so many options. So that's that's not luck, Bora. That's lots of planning has going into the thinking. And
Yeah, a lot of
yeah, it's amazing what they have done in.
yeah. Their strategy is right. They've got a squad of players that can, meet each situation. Like I think, if you go back into the semi-final when they were playing against India, the matchup of bowling legs, right arm leg spinners at Kohli worked beautifully. Where through the middle you had Livingston and Rashid Bowl there, 8 overs between them at less than 6 runs and over, which was the difference of that game. And then coming to the finals, um, they didn't bowl Moeen Ali. They held him back, but then made sure Ben Stokes bowled a few of his overs, and the best way they did it was they bowled Ben Stokes the first over and the seventh over. So
Mhm.
generally, or not generally, statistically, those are the overs that goes for less runs because batsmen tend to take less risk because it's a momentum shift. First
Mm,
over general, like that part-time spinner scenario, remember I spoke about,
yeah.
and the seventh over just off the power play, where
Mm,
teams don't want the momentum shift, so they're a bit, if at all they're being hesitant to go hard, those are the overs they'll hold back. So England's on top of these. They make those changes, and um, through, I mean, if you step back a couple of months ago when England made the white ball squad announcement, Alex Hales didn't make it, but
no.
they have that open discussion where I think you got to give credit to Alex Hales. He was on the phone. He has spoken to Rob Key and asked him, "Hang on, what, what, why didn't I make the cut?"
Yeah.
So little conversations like that, goes a long way. So which meant a bit of pressure on Rob Key to realize, hang on, there's a player, and they would have understood, okay, what uh, Alex Hales needs to do to get in, because you got to understand Jason Roy is not in this squad. He's a strong player.
Mm,
Phil Salt had a really good strong series up in Pakistan.
yeah.
And then he was a fringe player till the back end. They went with Alex Hales. So this is where the leadership change has mattered a lot.
Mm,
With, if you look, Owen Morgan and Alex Hales, they were all having the commentary or interviews after game. Owen Morgan had no spot for Alex Hales,
yeah. Oh,
but that's what Owen Morgan need to do to get to the top.
yeah.
And then you have Rob Key who's come in. Okay, you're at the top. What do you need to do to make sure you stay there? And he saw something different in a leadership, and his view was different, which opened the gate for Alex Hales. And from there, I think the squad welcomed him. He settled into that group. Um, and that was I think that was the smartest move they've made,
Mm,
because Alex Hales is one of the top Big Bash performers
it is. Yeah.
in that comp. And like the way he handled the Adelaide wicket, he knew straight away,
Mm,
game's on, this is what I'm going to take on. Anyone else wouldn't have handled that situation really well.
no.
Even the Indian batters, they thought, hang on, we 160 is a good score when you got to go hard. They didn't chase the spinners thinking, hang on, we'll be able to catch up to a good score and look after it. Whereas the flip side of Alex Hales, he went hard at the top. He knew,
Mm.
look, this is where I need to cash in. So
So he
um,
he went out of the team for different reasons, Bora. It's
yeah,
it was a it was clear that he was not going to come back in when Ian Morgan was captain. So, like,
no,
when Rob Key became the director of cricket, he had a half open door for him. Like, he was
correct.
open to have a chat, and that made that made the difference. So, like, what we have to learn from, if you talk about Team Sri Lanka, is what we have to learn from this is, if you look at administration team of England, their main decision makers, they are relatively young, and they have
Correct.
cricket very recently. And
Yeah.
every time something goes wrong in Sri Lanka cricket, we always go back too far into the past to look for solutions. We are not looking at the guys who just finished playing cricket and who has been
Yeah.
in this dressing room with these young players. And that's a mistake we do. And adding to that, without a proper T20 league in Sri Lanka, it's very hard
Yeah.
to compete in international level now. At
Yeah.
home we are good, but when we travel away, it's really hard. We have to do things differently if we are to be competitive.
Yeah. You're right. And when we don't perform on tournaments like this, um, things start getting questioned, and we tend to fall back on past players, or real like generations behind, where there wasn't T20 cricket, there wasn't the modern game, there wasn't social media at all. So um, there
Understand?
is a there is a big difference in that. So that's where, like, I think we've spoken a lot. This is where the likes of Mahela Jayawardene are the best people to be in that seat, because number one,
Is he?
he's part of franchise cricket, and he sees all the trends. You got to understand some of the changes Sri Lanka cricket benefits are with the exposures he's had,
Yeah.
and he's
Enough, though, bro.
transitioning that down.
I mean, it's only Mahela. Like he's not,
Yeah.
he, and he's not available full time as well. So we have to look for solutions. We are lucky to have him, but
Yeah.
there's so much he can do. You need more
Yeah,
support.
there are so many I think there are fractions when you have tournaments like this. Those fractions tend to be highlighted a lot, because they have each one has their way of playing the game, or where their way of opinions to say this is how they would have reacted to whatnot. But um, when you look at the bigger picture, you've got to make sure the boys are in a good space to get them on, because cricket's not going to stop. They're going to meet challenges next. There's going to be series that's going to follow. So you got to regroup, settle in, and then go back again. Like Chris Silverwood, this would be biggest challenge he'll face of his short career. Because number one question that is being asked is the fitness aspects, because I believe there was a direction taken where you don't need to be that strict and follow through, and we have a series of player breakdowns, and that does put a dent in your confidence in terms of a coaching group, where you're thinking, hang on, do I stick to what I am doing, because your methods are being tested now? How do you overcome this?
Yeah.
What's your solutions around it? Are more players going to break down now? That's the question. That's where Chris Silverwood will be tested, I reckon. And then how he reacts would be, we'll see it over the next few. I think in the coming month, you might see which direction they want to go towards it. This is where it's important to have that transition um, from a coaching point of view. Like Mickey Arthur going out, he had a direction where fitness was a focus, and um,
Yeah.
you got to give him credit on some of the results that has come through, because those are the habits that he's formed, which helped us get some success over the last few months. And to be honest, I think every Sri Lankan out there came into this tournament with a bit of hope. Generally, if you win a good tournament like the Asia Cup, you're coming into an ICC event, you come with a lot of confidence. There's a lot of optimism around that tournament. But with the results that followed through, there was a lack of, there is disappointment. People are unhappy. And then I wasn't surprised that people will start questioning, there's no discipline, player boys were out. I mean, attending
Attending
functions,
functions.
do
Yeah.
whatnot. That's generally the patterns when of a big tournament. We'll always had it like,
Yeah.
and then the icing on the cake for all everyone was the elephant in the room getting caught with what's happened out there. So and
Yeah.
now there are rollovers happening. So
When we played the last World Cup last year, Bora, remember we talked about this World Cup is about Australia, World Cup in Australia. This last
yeah,
year we talked about during the World Cup, and now we didn't make the semifinals, and pretty much the same team played in this World Cup. So
yeah,
where to from here? We have a World Cup in 2024, T20 World Cup in West Indies. Are we going to keep Dasun as the captain, or should we relieve him the captain duties and make the maximum out of him as a batsman in the team? These are the questions, what comes into my mind, because we've given him 2 years. He won an Asia Cup, but are we going to give him another 2 years, or are we going to make a change now? Because it's clear, you can see clearly he's not performing in the bat. I know he's the man behind the success of this team in this short period, because he held this group together.
yeah.
Or is it time to give the captain's armband to someone like Dani G or Charita Srilanka for the next
Yeah.
World Cup and let Dasun bat freely in that middle order? What are
Yeah,
your
the captaincy has always been a sensitive topic in the last few years with a lot of players. I mean, there was one stage was big tussle for captaincy. Um, with Dasun or the leadership being questioned, generally a World Cup tends to reset your leadership, which direction you want to head out to. So the team or the management making the decisions probably are taking that into account now. Do we start fresh, focus, so it gives whoever the new leader is a bit of time to regroup and settle in the way he wants to play. Um, in terms of performance getting questioned, we've had a lot of key players not performing, which put the pressure on the likes of Dasun, um, namely Bhanuka Rajapaksa not having a good tournament, Vanidu not performing with the bat,
yeah,
and patches like Charita Srilanka couldn't hold his own. Pathum Nisanka was the only guy performing. Kusal Mendis had a good tournament, but up against um, the regular countries playing cricket, his performance dropped down. Um, so those are things that goes against. Then on the bowling front, when you have likes of like Chamika Karunaratne not performing to his all-rounder spot, and then when you see Tasun not stepping up bowling overs, that was some question being asked. You got to step up and bowl because everyone's seen him bowl. And then Dushmanta Chamira falling down with his injury. So when if you look all of that, not many teams will survive to get out there. England, yes, they had a strong squad, but they only had a few injuries that allowed them to make those changes. Whereas teams like Sri Lanka, we've had 6 players that we want to play around, and of that 6, few weren't performing, and a few got injured. There's not a lot you can do in that team after that. um, so
so you want to keep him?
a short answer to the captaincy question, that's going to be a big, I think that's going to be around the table discussion, and they're going to say maybe let's make a change, because new direction, new movement, good time to reset. I think the front runners at this stage probably will be Dhananjay De Silva, Charita Srilanka. His name will be tossed up, but I think he's got a lot more cricket he needs to prove himself as a player before he can take up that responsibility. Um, he'll be the front runner. Kusal Mendes probably be the second one, but I'm not sure the exposure of captaincy in his leadership qualities within the group. But those are the two guys that will be discussed there as um, leadership material.
We'll have to talk about the elephant in the room, Bora. Tanushka Gunatilaga. I'm disappointed in him because he had a second chance. I mean, he was
Yeah.
bad for 2 years. Then they reduced the sentence to 1 year. Then he got released after 6 months to play cricket. Whatever you do outside of cricket is up to you. But when you're representing the country, you can't do that. There's no excuse. It's all allegations, and they still hasn't proven. But it's not a good look for him.
Yeah. Well, again, shocking with the outcome of it. His history hasn't been the best. Number one, uh, this investigation or this case that has happened, it's very tight-lipped. So there's not a lot of information going around. Um, I think currently what it stands is they've appealed for the second time to, have
Unbail, yeah.
get him on bail, but there is a reason that um, New South Wales police are not releasing. So we don't know the scenario there. So we've got to follow and see what's happening there. Just, I think, disappointing in terms of the events that took case, especially injured player being in the setup, probably kept him back as a last minute backup plan in case another player gets injured, and he would have recovered by them. So
That's why they kept him.
when there is trust in the player, you want that reward back to the system. Uh, there was, I think, when the trio got caught in England, they had to serve bans. There were bans fast tracked to whatnot, and you think they would have learned to be, you're a sport, you're a personality that is out there. So um, the next steps from there definitely doesn't look that bright. And yeah, I'm guessing his family is going through a lot at this stage as well as the other party. So I think the best there's a lot of things circulating in social media, and I think you got to give them that privacy in terms of, rather than adding fuel by um,
Yeah.
talking about a topic we don't know. But in terms of discipline, uh, we got to get better at this. Professional athletes, your place in society, and there is a responsibility you have to carry. I mean, the best example is Ricky Ponting. They had a little bit of a what do I say, when he was young, he was always out and about, similar to his nickname Punter. But then, soon as he was entrusted with the leadership, his lifestyle changed. He knew what he had to do, because he represented the country, and what his expectations were and how to deliver on it. And again, same with the Sri Lankan setup. We've had some greats who, um, been good brand ambassadors of the game, and people look up to. I mean, I bumped into Mahela Jayawardena the other day, um, and such a good feeling. You just, people you look up to. That's where, when you, even the kids, when they speak to them, that's a sports personality that everyone looks up to. So that's a responsibility I'm sure he would have also taken on board. So it's sad, like, you have a person like we are talking about just not understanding that responsibility. and acting in that manner.
Yeah, he's not a kid, Bora. He's a senior player in that setup. So I'm really disappointed in his actions. Yeah, there are so many stories circulating, but we don't know the real story. So we'll have to wait until the court decide with a verdict. We'll keep an eye on that situation. As I said before, that's not a good image for Sri Lanka and Sri Lanka cricket. It's something we should not allow to happen ever again. Sri Lanka has a good reputation as a cricket nation. We play a certain brand of cricket, and we are a big name in world cricket, even though we haven't been featuring in finals lately, but we have been dominating, making finals. There was a period where every World Cup semi-final, final, Sri Lanka featured in that. So
I think where to from now for Sri Lanka? We've
mm,
got to learn who's the best team out there. England at this stage, what have they done? We've seen the transition of players or and coaches into a setup that they feel um, helps keep them on top of the game. Of course, yes, if you look back at Sri Lanka winning the Asia Cup, we've done something really well to get to that stage. Okay, what can we now improve as we go along? Um, and be there, because the thing with Sri Lanka is because we've tasted being in those, like in finals, being a team that's always pushed for success. Even everyone watching the games or coming into a series has a lot of expectations. Unlike the other teams, like even if you take South Africa, New Zealand, South Africa, yes, they start very strongly, but at the back end they haven't delivered at all, so they find it short. New Zealand, that group of players are still struggling. They say, look, why doesn't people talk about New Zealand as a team? They perform well, but they haven't won anything. So whereas if you look back on the Sri Lankan crew, we've have success in finals. So if you get us to the finals, there is a chance the boys will turn up and turn it around. Asia Cup being an example. Um, so that's the expectations that is around this group. What do we need to do to regroup and bounce back? That's going to be the question that needs to be answered, not so
yeah,
much um, like kicking players in and out. It's okay, how can we set up this mindset? Yes, how can we get the likes of the Bhanuka Rajapaksas back to form, performing well? Because
yeah,
key there we have 5 to 6 key players like Pathum Nissanka, Kusal Mendis, Bhanuka, Wanidu Hasaranga, Dushmanta Chamira, and Dasun Chanaka for a certain extent. Those were the 6 players that were key players for us to win, or even the likes of a Chamika and Dasun maybe in a shared 6 spot. Um, and we had out of that group Dasun, Chamika, Banuka not having a good tournament with Dushmanta Chamiras. That's just what 3 players who have to lift the whole group up, which is a very hard task to do.
yeah,
Um, so that's where we've got to keep trying hard, go back to the drawing board, reset, and come back, because some of those, the likes like Dilshan Madhushankar, they'll come back, get fitter. Ideally, would have wanted them playing this tournament, but when they come back, that pushes the guys like the Binurers out of this squad. And we just got to make it hard for them. Like if you look like England, yes, we know strong team, but like Indians got a strong team as well. But when you look like some of the batters who've gone out of the group because they were injured, they still can't come in. The likes of your Prithvi Shah, Shikhar Dhawan still he's like the backup captain of India, but can't crack into the main team in the key tournaments. So that's how competitive those teams have become.
you gotta look at why that happens as well, Bora. There's a lot to do with the IPLs, the Big Bash, and the 100, the
Yeah.
tournaments they play. So it's not that we don't have talent. What happened with the young generation is, Bora, like they are better versions of the greats because they have seen what can be done. Like what Jayasuriya did, and they try to better themselves. Like Kusal Jani, they try to better themselves, and they do their own thing plus what the greats did as well, because they try to copy them. And so it's there's no problem with finding talent. It's just getting them prepared to compete at the world level. That's what we are not doing properly. That's why we need this. I saw rumors about canceling the LPL. I mean, that's a dumb thing to do. We are already behind. We got to catch up hell of a lot. And yeah,
I'm not surprised that if LPL's cancelled, as soon as they postponed it in a calendar window where there were no franchise cricket taking place, and pushed it to a calendar or a period where there's so many franchise tournaments taking place, like the Big Bash, South African T20 is going to kick off, the Dubai T20 is going to kick off, and then LPL, no chance we're going to survive that. So it was a poor call at that time, but I think they played it on the country's situation. But I reckon there was a bit more to it, because the tournament rights are held by a certain different organization. So it's if it doesn't get on, it's going to be a massive setback for Sri Lankan's progress. Like, we've had the LPL, and having that exposure has helped a few players. If we don't get it off the ground, we're just going to be, keep spiraling down a bit at this stage.
Hopefully not. I think we talked a lot, but we can go on forever because there's so many things we can talk about. When we are winning, we tend not to talk too much, but when you're not doing it, we are trying to find ways to win. So that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years. Series against Afghanistan will be interesting. We might have few new faces in that team. Yeah, we'll keep an eye and see how things goes.
Keep listening in. Give us a like, give us a follow. We'll have more content that we want to dish out over the coming months. We'll touch base more, discuss a bit more topics now that we have some of the data trickling in terms of what's worked well in this tournament to what's not worked, what's been the difference. Sri Lanka definitely had the injuries on their list in terms of stats for them to go back on. But yeah, give us a like, get us up the ranks, and hope to catch up and discuss something about cricket on the next episode as well.
All right. Thanks for listening. We'll catch up soon.
Cheers, everyone.